there, this is Lenny, the Litmos mascot, and I'm here to welcome you to Litmos. We develop learning solutions for the world's best performing companies. The Solutions Suite is a powerful but easy to use LMS, comprehensive course libraries, integration into top workflow tools, and services to support your success. Everything you need to power your corporate learning programs. And you'll be in good company. Thousands of organizations trust Litmos solutions to centralize and deliver training to employees, customers, and partners. These organizations understand that learning is a transformative force that fuels individual, team, and organization success. Simply put, a super intuitive interface and an innovative feature set loved by admins and learners alike. Add to that instant access to an ever-growing library of training courses, robust content authoring, as well as easy migration of your proprietary content, and you'll see why Litmos stands out from the pack. But let's get specific. With Litmos training, you can quickly deploy and integrate with the rest of your learning ecosystem without getting bogged down by countless hours of complexity. From there, you can customize your instance to match your company's brand down to the finest details, from fonts and colors to headers and footers. And more, you'll benefit from the convenience and cost savings of built-in content author. No need for additional third-party tools. Simply create your own courses right within Litmos, leverage our robust content libraries, or import your own content directly into the system. Litmos helps you automate training assignment and learning paths. From there, they're good to go with 24/7 access to learning, whether sitting at their desk or on the move from any leading mobile device. The feature list goes on and on, from gamification and multi-language support to video assessments and built-in reporting. And we have the services to support your success. To see everything in action, check out a live demo or a free trial experience of what Litmos can do for you.
Hello, and welcome to today's Training Industry Leader Talk, Sales Training Essentials. Develop and empower your sales team. Sponsored by Adobe, Axiom Sales Kinetics, ELB Learning, InfoPro Learning, and Litmos. I'm Dee Caraglino, event producer and your host for today. Before we dive into our first session, I would like to quickly go over a few housekeeping items, which involve slides. So just a few housekeeping items to help you interact with our speakers and get the most out of today's sessions. Throughout today's event, please feel free to chat your comments into the chat window and submit questions via the Q&A window. I'll be monitoring those comments and saving your questions for Q&A toward the end of the session. I have enabled closed captions for this event. You may select to turn on or off the subtitles by locating the closed caption icon in your toolbar. And if you'd like to join us on social media or share any of the information you learned today, we'll be engaging in the Twitter conversation and throughout the event, so please feel free to join in there. And Twitter is now known as X, but still the same address. At the end of your time with us, you'll notice a short survey has popped open in your browser, and we'd appreciate your thoughts on today's event. Lastly, all of our sessions are being recorded and will be archived on trainingindustry.com. You'll receive a follow-up email from us with a link to the on-demand sessions and slides after the event. If this is your first Training Industry event, we'd like to welcome you. Training Industry exists to make connections among learning and development professionals. We offer tons of resources to support your role in L&D through live events such as today's Leader Talk, as well as through articles on our website, our magazine, conferences, research reports, and our podcast. Make Training Industry your go-to resource for learning solutions. Visit trainingindustry.com to learn more. And now, without any further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our speakers, Christie Bacchus and Kendrah Wick. Christie is a self-proclaimed sales and technology geek and an expert in the Litmos product. She has spent 8 years in the learning space and 22 years in Silicon Valley as a sales engineer. Earlier this year, she switched careers to head up product marketing. She's earned 3 very different degrees. She has a Bachelor of Science in Microbiology from Colorado State University, a Master of Computer Information Systems from the University of Denver, and a Master of Arts in World War II Studies from Arizona State University. With 11 years under her belt, Kendrah is an experienced business, sales, market development manager with a demonstrated history of hiring, training, and coaching successful teams in the B2B, SaaS, and EdTech industries. Kendrah is dedicated to leveraging cross-departmental relationships to grow pipelines and develop high-performing sales professionals. She has a basketball background and coaches her teams both on and off the court by the same principles. Invest in your people, keep it competitive and fun, and win. Christie and Kendrah, I am looking forward to this one.
Thanks, Dee. Good morning, everybody. Appreciate the introduction. This is a fairly hot topic for me just daily in my work as a director of sales development at Litmos, and I think probably a very hot topic for all sales leaders. I think we're constantly looking at how the sales process and how the buyer's landscape is changing and evolving. So I'm super excited to chat about this with Christie. We've spent a couple of hours over the last month or so talking about this topic, and we realized, how are we going to cut this down to have a real streamlined conversation with everyone? But I think there's some really cool points that we kind of have developed as we've been talking about this, and we're excited to share that with you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go ahead and go into those statistics. And these are fantastic. So 82% of sales reps say they've had to adapt quickly to new ways of selling. And 69% of sales professionals agree their job is harder now. So 82% say they've had to change. 69% say it's more difficult now to do your sales job. And then 80% of salespeople who have responded to certain surveys struggle with virtual meetings. So we're on a virtual meeting right now. They really struggle in the sales cycle selling through a Zoom, for example.
Yeah, I think it's one of the things we've noticed too is, we have two kinds of sales reps. You have the reps that are used to shaking hands and taking people to lunch and having coffee and that face-to-face interaction. And then you kind of have like almost this mini generation of sales reps that have done everything virtually. How do you get both of these groups to adapt to now what the sales, process looks like, what that landscape looks like? Obviously, with more remote workforce, we're seeing more remote sales teams. We're seeing more remote buying. People are, virtually going through a sales process. A less human experience when they're purchasing something online. I think now more than ever, it's super important for everyone to understand, like, how are people buying? Who is buying? Where are they buying? And, having their sales team adapt to how those changes have come about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really, if you look at this current sales landscape, the current challenges, certainly changing consumer behavior, like just as Kendrah mentioned, it's the buyers have changed. Hybrid and online selling is the new norm, right? So we're going online, we're more educated, we're more down the funnel than we ever have been before. Pretty much when we decide to buy, we have a good idea, at least who the 2 or 3 vendors are going to be that we're going to look closer at, and then really hitting quota while creating meaningful relationships. Just like it says, we're on Zoom. How do we create those relationships? Kendrah mentioned, classically, we used to, in the old days, take everyone to lunch, right? Or take them to dinner and have that personal connection. And now it's more difficult to do that. So how do we maintain or get to our quota while creating these meaningful relationships? And really, advances in technology to accommodate the changes in the buying landscape have many sales teams really using more automation to kind of predict what they think is going to happen, or streamline and engage the clientele wherever they are. And I absolutely love this slide. So you see 2 salespeople here. And what do these salespeople have in common? Well, they don't exist in real life. They're actually AI generated salespeople. So there has been some concern from all of us that AI will replace our jobs as salespeople. And it won't necessarily replace your job. Really, it's a tool to complement your sales process. So whether you're using it to write a formal email, to get some ideas on how that person may be interested in your products, that is really a tool rather than a replacement. So don't be scared, even though these people don't exist in real life. It's really a wonderful, wonderful tool. Like Carvana, for example, and Kendrah and I were talking about this last night. You know, Carvana is not AI, but they have the car vending machines, and it's a self-guided buying process where you don't necessarily interact with the salesperson. So they've done all their work. They can show you the little scratches on the car, all of that. But that has not replaced car dealerships. And really, the other thing that Kendrah and I were talking about was, is this when you're buying a software product, for example, the process is very different maybe than with a car. Educational products, right? You have to find the right fit. You know, you can't really shortcut it. There's really not a formula for that necessarily. We're going to give you some strategies to help you, but there's not necessarily a formula. You actually have to have that people interaction.
Yeah.
Kendrah?
Yeah, I think AI has kind of been the elephant in the room over the last couple of months. I mean, everybody's talking about it. A lot of tools are starting to adapt that type of technology. But I think, like, at the end of the day, and I think most salespeople that have done this for a long time and have built relationships over time with their customers and prospects know that, you know, people like to buy from people. People like to have that interaction with a human being, especially when you're talking about like products that you need to evaluate over longer periods of time that are more of an investment for your company. You want someone there to kind of guide you and help you understand that you're providing like a consultative approach to walking people through the sales cycle. So I'm not as worried about it as I think some other people are in terms of AI taking over our jobs, and you know we're all going to be answering to robots and you know in the future. But I think people are very much inclined to still lean towards that old school way of having that relationship, building it, and carrying it through the sales cycle. I mean, that's where the personalization lies. You know, people want to build that relationship not just about the tool, but getting to know someone and how they think and what they think about your product is super important. And you can't really do that with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really that people will still buy from people they like and also people they trust.
Right.
Whoa, right. No, this is not an eye test for the audience here. I promise you. There's a lot of sales tools out there. It's overwhelming, right? And which ones do you use the most often? You can put that in the chat. But where do you live daily as a salesperson? What systems do you live in daily? That may be your CRM solution. It may be your incentive comp solution. You're always looking at, what's my commission going to be for this month? I know I did that as a sales engineer. Really, and the key takeaway here too is, for all the training that we do, there's really not enough training at the right time. So it's not necessarily that we don't have enough tools, because we have a lot of tools, right? But the training isn't necessarily in the flow of work. And Kendrah, I know we use a lot of useful sales tools at Litmos, including our own product that is built into some of the applications that sales team uses daily.
Right. Like, we're pretty lucky because we can use our own product to kind of train our employees on how to use tools. And we have a lot of them. I mean, we're using tools like Qualified, 6 Sense. We're implementing Outreach right now for our sales team. And I think all these tools are great. I mean, a lot more tools have come onto the market trying to address the issues of the last few years around buying. They want to support sales teams to streamline their process and give us all the data we need to make decisions about how we prospect. But at the end of the day, these tools are only as useful as they get used. And you have to be able to train your sales teams on how to, incorporate those tools on their daily tasks, understand the ins and outs and the purpose of the tool. And that can be difficult, especially when you have a lot of them. Do they consolidate? Like, do they integrate with each other? I think it's super important to make sure that, I know for my team, our sales development team, where I'm always checking in, like, are you feeling like this is helping you? Is this tool useful? Like, where do you feel, you need some more training around this? Because there are a lot of tools. It can be overwhelming for sales teams to, be able to incorporate this on a regular basis. And you want to be able to see the ROI. Like, you've spent money on purchasing these tools and bringing them in. Like, how can we get that adoption to optimize the tool and see that ROI?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. What challenges are your sales teams facing? Please put that in the chat. We will take a look at that. As you put that in the chat, we'll comment on that. So let's see if we can have some folks put that in there. What kind of challenges are you experiencing? Yeah, finding quality leads. Yeah, absolutely, Kendrah. You can definitely speak to that.
Yeah, I think that's the number one, right? Everybody's asking, where are the leads? Where are the leads? How do we find these leads? And I think this comes down to, it's funny because it kind of goes backwards. We can use technologies to help us say, okay, this person is showing engagement on our website. Like, we use 6 Sense and qualified for that kind of data. And we can say, okay, great. We see that this company is super interested in us. Now, who are the people that we need to contact to start having this conversation with them? That requires some digging. It requires some research. It requires sales reps' time, and providing them with the resources, to be able to streamline that process. Like, do you have Zoom info so you can pull that info into your CRM, and how, and there is no real definitive way to know if this is the right person unless they're raising their hand. But I think using that kind of predictive data to our advantage and incorporating it in your daily, our sales teams are just the same as everybody else. We're looking for that next lead, that next hot, opportunity. And I think it really comes down to the personalization of that process. Who is this person? I want to know them forwards and backwards. And then I'm going to engage them in a really meaningful way. I think we're very far away from the spraying and praying approach to, like, just throwing our message out there. I think it really comes down to the personalization, and, getting our reps trained on understanding that personalization, how they can do it and how they can use the tools to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one person put in the chat, just people answering their phones, right? It's harder, right? To talk to a real person.
We've got to get creative. Like, what we want them to pick up the phone. How do we get them engaged in that way? It's funny. We have an international sales teams, and they have much more luck getting people to answer the phone than we do in America. It's just harder because people are screening their calls. But I think it comes down to the way we engage them. If we can catch their eye with, something important in their email inbox or on LinkedIn, then they're more inclined to pick up the phone and have a chat with us if they, see us pop up. It's definitely hard to get people on the phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know I will look at an email if there's something in there that's free, like they give me a free brochure or free stats or something along those lines. I'm like, oh, this is really interesting. I know Salesforce did that recently. They had the sales survey. That was what we referenced in the beginning of the presentation. So I know that also helps get my attention. All right. So, strategies for adaptation. So at Litmos, our approach to some of these challenges is creating more agile salespeople. And here are a few strategies that we are using to do this. Hopefully, these will help you too. And the first one is coaching. Kendrah.
Yeah, so as Dee mentioned in the intro, I have a sports background. I've coached and played basketball my whole life practically. And so being a director of sales development came fairly natural in terms of coaching. I love working with individuals. I love sitting down and looking at their strengths and their weaknesses. Where can we improve in their process? How can we get them to think differently about different situations? I think in order to create a more create and nurture a more agile sales team, like, we have to be agile sales leaders. Like, we have to be willing to go out there and do some of those out of the box things to get our sales reps to kind of follow in our lead. And so I think really spending, time finding out more about my individual reps, like who are these people, what motivates them, checking in with them, communicating about pipeline, diving into opportunities to see where there might be issues that we can solve. I think really being clear about daily expectations, about KPIs, about quota. I mean, really opening the lines of communication and building that trust with your team members. It means that when they come up against something that might seem difficult or they're struggling, that they can come back to you and say, I need help, I need assistance. I think it really comes down to building that relationship with your teams, so that when you can step in, that they will ask for that help. Because I mean, a lot of time you're thinking about sales reps as like living in a silo. And I think opening the lines of communication, really making it feel like a team atmosphere, is a big part of really starting to create more agile salespeople. I think asking the questions and reaching out for help is a big piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And keeping them engaged in kind of lifelong training to lifelong coaching, especially in sales, handling objections. That sounds almost cliche, right? But, keep going over that, because that does change. And just as many folks in the chat says, it's a tougher sales environment these days, not as much spend. So we have to continually really update what those objections are and how to handle those. Also understanding your incentive comp, right? That's an important thing, because as salespeople, we're driven to succeed and achieve and make lots of money. That's really the thing that we want to do. And if you don't understand your comp plan, incentives drive behavior. If you don't understand that, then you may not be as successful. So that's part of the coaching process, the training process, all of that. And then again, as we mentioned earlier, real-time training within the flow of work, within your CRM solution, even your incentive compensation solution, the applications that you use every day.
Yeah. Problem solving is an interesting one. I think it's a very clear outcome of coaching. I think when you're spending time with your individual team members and you're understanding what their struggles are on the daily, or you're understanding their what their approach is, that it's easier to be able to identify issues that they might be having around sales behavior, around knowledge gaps. Like the more you're engaged with them on a regular basis, the more you can see where there might be problems to solve. Right now, it's funny, internally at Litmos, we're running our sales teams through mock discoveries and demos. We're kind of going through a certification process, and it's really to help us gauge like product knowledge, sales tactics. So sales can better think on their feet. So we can, they can pivot in relation to what the customer needs, just further understanding our customer use cases. And lucky for us, again, we have our own product that we can use to train our sales reps on any of the problems that we come across. We can assign different trainings to individuals based on what their needs are, and they can follow a path to get them where they need to be in order to upskill and give them room to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this part because I was able to participate in some of the mock sales experiences, and I got to throw some curveballs at some of my sales reps that when I was on the sales engineering side I work with. And it wasn't so much their answer, but how did they handle that, right? And one salesperson completely froze, and actually I didn't even know the answer to the question. And but it was interesting how they handled it. They froze for a little bit, and then they said, well, I will get back to you on that. And we proceeded ahead. But those are fantastic. If you're not doing those today, do those, because it really is the hardest thing to present in front of your peers, because you're like, I know that's not true. But you can really straighten that story out, make sure that they are addressing all the key value points that your products offer, and then you can go from there. And that's something you really should do quarterly. In Litmos, again, we're lucky we have a video assessment tool that we use. use. And that actually enables the reps to go in and answer a question or multiple questions. And it uses AI. So what it does is it generates a transcript on what they've said, how they've answered those questions. They can record it on their phone in real time. And then it goes through machine analysis. So it looks at sentiment. Were they positive? Were they negative? Were they talking too fast? Did they have too much Red Bull or Monster Energy drink in the morning? It looks at keywords, success percentages. So were they saying a lot of ums, or were they saying a lot of keywords on the value prop of your product? And then it generates an overall machine analysis score that you can essentially they can review with their supervisors. So that's enormously helpful that we're able to leverage that to in problem solving.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, that goes hand in hand. I think one of the biggest takeaways that we've had from the sales certification process that we've been going through is, seeing how easy it is for people to slip back into a spiel or a script, or to kind of rattle off our product features and, instead of like really tailoring the experience. So the assessment's great because they can go back and look at that and be like, oh, I really started to sound like a robot in this, section where, I really should have stopped and taken the time to really listen. And active listening this is a interesting one because it is a hard thing to teach people. It's not something that like you can take a little course and now all of a sudden you're an active listener. Like this is something that has to be put into practice and has to be like regularly followed up on. And I think, like I said, it can be hard to coach and train on, but I think emphasizing certain behaviors or overemphasizing certain behaviors, like the necessity for customer research. Like I always tell my team, like, if you don't know who this person is, go do a little digging. I mean, that time that you take to learn something a little bit extra about this person means that you can be a better active listener, that you're not listening for taking all these small little details. You're listening for the need. You're listening for what they're talking about in terms of what they need for product. I also think that really emphasizing call discovery and demo preparation. Like, I think that people get stuck in just getting the next person on the phone and having a conversation so that they can give them their spiel instead of preparing. Like, this is the use case I think is, probably the most likely for this customer. Here's some of the information I have around this use case. Now I understand it. I know now when I get on the phone with them, I can really listen and hear what they're saying. I think a lot of reps need to learn to lean forward into listening and capturing as much information. I always tell my SDRs, because, essentially we're the first touch when we're talking to customers, is to get as much detail about, what they're going through, what brought them to come and look at our product. Because those are the key pieces that really tailor that experience for them along the entire sales journey. And we want to be able to pass that on to the sales reps so they continue it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That is extremely important. The other thing that we found helpful is to nurture a growth mindset. Many sales teams feel that when they have to do training, I have to do training, right? It takes away from their ability to sell. And actually, we found it to have the opposite effect, because that builds our future leaders at our organization. I can remember some of the sales reps that I've worked with who are now RVPs at Litmos. And we really want to nurture that. And for the sales reps that are fine with their role today, that's just fine. If there's sales reps, though, and many times there are, that say, what do I need to do to be an account executive, to move up in the organization, to be an RVP one of these days? You can really, again, work with that and extend that, that career development through training. So learning paths, where Kendrah can create specific ones for her teams. I know your SDRs right now, there's some of you that want to move to the account executive role. Here's a learning path to do that. And they can do that. So it's really training beyond onboarding and access to training anywhere. So if they're on their free time and they want to take some training to become an AE someday, they can certainly do that.
Yeah. This last one, the cross-departmental alignment, I think is kind of the accumulation or incorporates all of the strategies we've already talked about. Like, I think all of these kind of wrap up together in this little package of, the best way to kind of move your sales reps through training in order to, keep them agile, keep them, up to date on what the buying process is like. But I think it starts with coaching and problem solving, and like really encouraging those open lines of communication, not just, with their own leadership, but with other departments. Like, being able to have conversations with pre-sales, with marketing, with product, that can all play into how salespeople solve for prospect problems. I know sales reps like to think they have all the answers, but most likely they don't. And there's somebody within your organization that does, and it doesn't hurt to, bring those people into your buying process and have them participate. I think it definitely shows a growth. That's where the growth mindset is. Like, it's not just about me and trying to sell this customer. It's about, being able to bring in the experts that can, participate in this, again, this consultative way of selling, and bringing in the people that know how to answer those types of questions, can provide information and background for sales reps. Like I mentioned before, sometimes sales reps can be categorized as being like this lone wolf, living in a silo, their heads are down, they're trying to hit their quota, especially with all the remote teams that everybody has now. Everybody's kind of living individually. But I think part of the growth mindset in this is like going outside their comfort zone, engaging other departments, utilizing their peers, collaborating with other departments. And I think at Litmos, it starts with the leadership. It starts with, myself being able to reach across and collaborate with other department heads and open those lines of communication where now my team feels comfortable to be able to go to that team and have conversations, where it's not like I'm just like, we're in a box and we don't speak to anybody and we do our jobs over here. I think it's super important for leadership. That trickles down, and that makes our sales teams feel more comfortable in creating those partnerships across departments.
Yeah, absolutely. The sales reps I've worked with who've been the most successful use the skill sets of other departments in their sales cycle, and that's worked out really well. All right, time for a poll. So, what learning strategies, I've got the poll here too. What learning strategy will you implement to support your sales teams? I believe you have multiple answers for this. Will it be coaching, problem solving, active listening, growth mindset, cross-functional alignment, or other? You can use, again, your polling feature there, and we'll take a look at what our results are here. We'll give it a minute or so for you to answer that poll. And then we will get to some last statistics for you and open it up for Q&A. Looking at the results here.
Yeah, definitely not surprised by coaching. I think that's, it's not the easy one because you do have to, one of the things I always talk about with my team is, in any team you're coaching, even the basketball teams I coach, you kind of have to learn every individual person's way of learning, and their way of operating so that you can kind of adjust the way that you coach them, you mentor them, you manage them. And that can be difficult, especially if you have large sales teams, really getting to know people personally and feeling invested in, and that you're someone that they can trust. I think that's a hard job. It's a majority of what, you do definitely as a director of sales development, where you're trying to build, better salespeople and stronger salespeople. But it's the one that really falls back on you. It really comes back to how dedicated leadership is to building strong teams. And so I'm not surprised that that's the highest one. It's one of those ones that I think it's why I come to work every day. I like coaching people. I love, my team and the relationships that we're building. And, I think that's important for people to also feel like, something they're passionate about. And usually it's people if you're working in sales.
So true. And active listening, that scored quite
Yeah.
high. And
Yes.
boy, that's important. If you talk to a prospect or a customer you're trying to upsell and you are not listening to their needs and you just show up and show them everything that you got and they had actually only 3 things they were interested in, that you're really going to miss the mark. And that's where that active listening comes into play. Growth mindset, keep top salespeople at your organization. That is extremely important too.
Yeah. And someone mentioned in the chat, the other was, training in general sales and customer service. And one of the things I was just saying the other day actually is, it'd be really great to have our marketing team or our customer support team like sit in and see how our SDRs process leads, better understand like the process we go through to, vet the leads that come over. With that understanding, they can make better decisions on their teams too about how things get handled. So even training cross-departmentally, like so that other departments really understand your role at the company and how you're operating. And vice versa. I think it's super important for the SDRs to better understand, like, where are these leads coming from that I'm getting every day? Let's sit down with the marketing team and have them show us, their campaigns and how they're walking through the process. Definitely, beneficial for everybody to understand how each cog of the wheel works, so that we can better streamline our process as a whole.
Absolutely. So here's our last stat here. This is very encouraging. It says 75% of sales professionals are confident in their sales organization's ability to reskill reps, up from 63% in 2020. Why do you think this is, Kendrah?
There could be a million reasons, but the first thing I think that comes to mind is, I think in the last few years, we've seen the real benefit of autonomy. People are, autonomy can be created, creating a culture of like trust and confidence, autonomy over their workday, autonomy over their career path. Like people are feeling more in control of their role. And I think more and more companies are understanding the importance of providing all employees with access to, to growth path, to training opportunities, to specialty training. It's not just a perk anymore to be providing your employees with professional development, and training and courses and having them available to that further education in their role. So it's not surprising that, more people are feeling confident because I think it's being addressed more and more. Like I said, not a perk. It's something that should be included. If people are looking for that, as a choice when they look for a role, it's like, oh, well, this comes built in. That's awesome. I think that's, super important to, what's making people feel more confident in that.
I agree. Absolutely. So I believe it is time for Q&A. Dee?
All right. Let's see what questions we have. Let's see. Can you share more on what these trainings look like? Simulation, AI, or scenario based?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll start off with that and then have Kendrah fill in the blanks on that one. But basically, with what we do is we'll do the AI video assessments, and then we'll also do actual role playing over Zoom. So we'll do that. We'll have pre-created sales scenarios. And then I'll pretend I'm an instructional designer or something along those lines. I have 12 years of experience and here's the items that I'm interested in. So we'll actually do that role playing over Zoom. Kendrah?
Yeah, a lot of our content that we offer in our pathway courses is, we have 80,000 content courses available inside Litmos. So, but you can whittle it down really to very specific things that, individual sales reps need to be working on. We have courses around active listening. We have courses around engaging customers based on body language and how they're speaking. So I think you can make it as personalized as you want to, depending on what each sales rep is looking for. But the components, like Christie's saying, like we have AI assessment, we have quizzes in there where we can test some of their knowledge. We have, those individualized scenarios, hypothetical questions. We've got objections that we normally see, where we're adding different kinds of components. So it's not just someone clicking through, a bunch of words on a page and trying to understand it. We want to make it as interactive as possible. And so we do have a lot of tools that can make it more interactive. Polling, like again, short quizzes, video assessment, live video, different ways that they can kind of engage the topic. So which also incorporates how everybody learns. Like sometimes it's easy for me to write something down and then know it than it is for me to read it. So we have to kind of make those adjustments to that pathway so that everybody's getting learning the way that they know how best.
All right.
Yep.
So I've got 2 questions that are asking for specific tips to being better than the competition, or things that you would suggest to have seasoned salespeople be more productive. And I think maybe both of these are sort of asking, how do you add learning into your daily workflow to upskill your salespeople?
Yeah, absolutely. Micro learning certainly is important. Take 3 minutes a day. If you've ever used like a Duolingo, for example, and you're learning languages, that's great. Just take your training in tidbits. We have that at Litmos too. I think as far as winning against your competition, it's knowing your product. So again, sales reps that know our products the best are usually the most successful because they can really key in on what the customer needs are. And Kendrah, I know you have some thoughts on that too.
Yeah, definitely. I think right now we're going through another phase of product training. We've had a couple updates on our product, and it's super important to be able to keep our sales reps up to date on those changes within the product so that they know it forwards and backwards and they can convey that. And like you said, better be able to key in on what, everybody's or what our prospects are saying about what their needs are and how they can be met. I think there's not a math equation around being better than your competition, as opposed to maybe your product is built better, maybe it's stronger in terms of, functionality or features, maybe you have less bugs, but if you don't know how to convey that information as a sales rep to your prospects, you can put yourself on the same playing field as your competitors. So I think what differentiates is, on the SDR side, I know for sure it's that personalization, that friendly, open, let's have a consultative conversation type approach, as opposed to let me get all your details so I can get you in a demo. I think that goes back to active listening. Like, what do we know about this customer and how can we kind of show that this is the correct product for them? And not being like, well, we're going to try to fit this square peg in a round hole just so we can get a sale. Like, I think you really have to think about it as, are we a good fit for them? And are they a good fit for us? And being okay with saying we're not. I think that's a big piece of it. I think people appreciate when you can be honest about what your product can do for them. And I know that's counterintuitive for a lot of people to feel like, oh, we have to plug our product all the time.
Yeah, I mean, so many times it ends up being easier for both parties if you know from the beginning that it's not a good fit.
Right.
Otherwise, you end up with 2 frustrated groups, and
right.
That's never good. And then when they do need your product, they'll come back if you're honest with them.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. One other question we have is, how do you leverage AI onto sentiment analysis? Any tools out there that you recommend?
Yeah, we have that embedded in Litmos. It looks at sentiment. It's actually a third-party product that we embed in our solution. It looks at that, but there's different AI tools out there. I don't have that off the top of my head of which ones I would recommend today. We can certainly follow offline. But there are a lot of different tools out there. To our knowledge, though, within our particular LMS, we are one of the only vendors that offers that. But there are standalone, again, applications that may have that in there.
Let's see, we just got about 1 more minute left. Do y'all have any closing thoughts or final things you'd like to leave us with today?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, I really appreciate everyone's time. It was an interesting transition. I went from sales to marketing, so now I'm on the other side, and it's been fantastic and really enlightening. And I found that I can actually take a lot of my sales skills, and I've been able to move them over to marketing and help the sales team sell more. So that's the idea, is we want to sell them more. I know their pain points. I know areas that I can help them in, and that's just been a great transition. But the formulas, again, they're not necessarily formulas, but there are those strategies that we provided you today that we feel that have really helped our organization, and we hope you were able to take those with you today too.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, this is, like I said at the very beginning, this is a very hot topic for us right now. We're always looking at how the buying and sales landscape are changing. We're always looking at, who's coming to our website, how are we capturing them? Are they showing engagement? Like, we're always looking at if we're seeing any changes. And if we do, how do we adjust our sales process to that change so that we can stay relevant, that we can stay ahead of the game, that we can compete with our competitors that are out there. I'm always looking at how we can better this process internally. And I think the biggest way we can do that is just by keeping our sales reps informed, giving them the opportunities to train and upskill and better understanding their role in turn, so they can better understand the customer that we're working with. So it's been a pleasure to talk about this at length with Christie and other teams, because it's definitely given me some food for thought to go back to the team with and be like, hey, we can implement some of these things a little bit more. So like I emphasize, I'm all about the training portion or the coaching portion. I know there's some other parts in those strategies that I can be implementing more so to increase our success as a team.
Well, thank you both so much. And we will have your information in our follow-up email. So if people would like to continue this conversation later, they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Bye-bye. Have a great day.
Bye.
All right, so we will be taking a 15-minute break. Up next, we have Dominic Kaloya joining us from ELB Learning for their session, How Sales Trainers Are Using AI-Powered Tools. So in just a moment, I will end this session, and we ask you to go back to the lobby and join our next session, and we will see you at the top of the hour. Thank you.